7:31 in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, as with many other activities, sport took a serious hit in 2020 because of the impact of COVID-19. But some things go ahead as planned, even if they are done differently, and that includes the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee's awards ceremony. It's happening tomorrow from 6 o'clock in the evening. It's been a quiet year for sport, as we mentioned, because of the pandemic, but all going according to plan. Tokyo 2020 will be held in July of 2021, and that's very much on the horizon for the Olympic Committee. Tomorrow will mark the 26th staging of the TTOC award ceremony, and we're joined by the president, Brian Lewis. Brian, always good to have you on the program with us, all in place for the virtual event happening tomorrow.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Good morning to your viewers, and Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous New Year to you and everyone and your viewers. Yes, we are all set and ready to host the first ever virtual. I mean, that has become a bit of a cliche now, right? So it's the first virtual Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee annual awards. It's been a bit of a challenge, but our commitment to doing it and not taking the easy road of simply not doing it. It wasn't an option. So.
And how will the general public be able to see tomorrow's event?
Via Zoom, Facebook, and the TTOC social media platform. We'll also be sending to the media, the various media houses, a link that will allow them to have the virtual without, of course, compromising the surprise and the confidentiality of the process before 6 p.m. But it's going to be available. Members of the public can tune in via the social media team, TTO, and the various media houses.
And because of the nature of it, has anything changed significantly apart from the actual structure of it? Do you have the same awards, the same categories and so on?
No, we have had the 8 awards, the 8 prestigious awards, including the Alexander B. Chapman Sportsman, Sportswoman, Junior Sportsman, Junior Sportswoman, Sports Personality, Future is Female, People's Choice. So what has changed is how we would have looked at the selection of the awardees this year. The overall theme of the awards this year is resilience. We have a very interesting feature speaker, an international sport personality or former international sports personality. I think it will surprise most people.
Clearly, you're not going to tell us who it is.
Huh?
Clearly, you're not going to tell us who it is.
No. Usually the tradition is it comes into the awareness on the actual night, and people actually see the speaker. But it's going to be an interesting choice. He has a point of view, it may have been a bit contentious in his time, but a tremendously fantastic person in the context of having a point of view. So that's going to be interesting. We'll also have a special address from the patron of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee, which is Her Excellency Paula May Weeks. So it's going to be interesting.
And of course, there's the president's address. I'm sure you're going to try as best as you can put in context a year when maybe some would have said, look, it might as well not have an awards this year because some athletes who might have been competing abroad were stuck at home or had their events cancelled for various reasons, so they didn't have a fair chance.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, one of the things that sports teaches us is you focus on what you can control and you have uncontrollables, whether that be a poor referee decision, rain washout play, or some other thing. You just have to pivot and move on. I think it's very important in the context of resilience, and the Finnish word sisu, S-I-S-U, comes to mind. This has been a very challenging year. COVID-19 has totally disrupted every aspect of life, and it makes no sense rolling over and just rolling over and quitting. You have to pick yourself up, keep pressing on, and move forward. And that's the message that we want to send. The Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee, we are committed to being game changers. we have a responsibility, a commitment, and a dedication to the youth and young people of this nation who aspire to be Olympic champions. So, you know,
How
there's so
much
much
has
uncertainty.
how much would those imperatives, Brian Lewis, have been impacted by COVID-19? Because the message behind you, advancing women in leadership, is of course not accidental. But we have the issues of women still being marginalized. We have the issue of racism, which has come very much to the forefront. And again, forgive me for introducing my own personal opinion. I feel it's just window dressing from the major sporting organizations when it comes to the issue of dealing with racism in sport and wider society when we talk about it internationally. But just give us your perspective as to how much those imperatives of advancing the cause of girls and women in sport would have been impacted by COVID-19.
I think that the reality of COVID-19 and a reality that what people haven't paid attention to, for example, in terms of gender and women in sports, it's gender regressive. We have seen an increase or perception of an increase of violence against women. That atmosphere of violence and a lack of safety for women will have an impact on sport in the context of women. There are a lot of facilities, for example, right here in Trinidad and Tobago, that can't be considered safe for females, young girls, and women. And it is something that sports administrators need to be addressing. You spoke about racism, especially internationally, whether it be the International Olympic Committee Rule 50 and a legacy of Avery Brundage. But even right here in Trinidad and Tobago, a big issue that COVID has amplified: poor sport governance and the inability of sports administrators to adapt to the reality of COVID. We're still seeing too much bacchanal and negativity, and I don't understand how, with all that is going on, and it's been well documented, and I'm not going to be specific here, but how we expect for sport in Trinidad and Tobago, whether it be the sport industry, to adapt and to not just survive COVID-19, but to be proactive and to thrive. I don't understand why, with sports administrators continuing to focus on all the wrong aspects of sport, how we expect sport in Trinidad and Tobago to survive and thrive through this unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic.
And it's something that I'm sure we might have more time at another point to develop even further. But all going according to plan, because we weren't even thinking of this 12 months ago. Tokyo 2020 will be held in July into August 2021. At this stage, do you see anything, like whether maybe the vaccine or the availability of the vaccine, anything impacting on 2021 still being held?
Well, the reality is that the Olympic Games has been rescheduled to the 23rd of July 2021, the closing ceremony. Opening ceremony is the 23rd of July. Closing ceremony is the 8th of August. And the Paralympic Games, let's not forget that. We have people like Akeem Stewart. It's from the 24th of August to the 5th of September. The reality is that while there is a degree of certainty and we have to press on, we had recently great news about the vaccine. But then within the last week, we have had the new variant, and that's what they call it, the variant.
Yeah,
of,
the variant that is, I think, 70% more infectious.
Right, and that has a lot of, if you look at a lot of the world leaders literally in a panic mode. So we will see how that has changed, the approach. But at this point in time, at the level of the Olympic Committee, we are very focused, not just on our annual awards, which will be held tomorrow, virtual, but even the marathon walk, which is used as a fundraiser with the 10 goals by 2024 Athlete Welfare and Preparation Fund. That will be on the 24th of January, subject to COVID guidelines. So the reality is that we have no control over COVID-19. What we have to do is to continue to be safe, to stay healthy, to wear masks, to sanitize, to social distance. But above all, we have to adapt. There is no normal. There is no going back to normal. And it is in this context that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee that we continue to press on. And we believe that strongly that we have to be game changers.
And I know you've always tried to maintain a positive outlook when you talk about sport and the future and the opportunities for bright young minds and athletes in Trinidad and Tobago. What would you like to see? What would give you that belief that there's something that could go beyond the usual shallow rhetoric, well, it's a new year, so we go do things differently kind of thing? What would give you that belief that there could be positive movement heading into 2021 when you talk about sport and administration of sport in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, I think that the reality is that if we have to be honest, the sports administrators continue to drop the ball very disappointingly. But it is the athletes, the sportsmen and sportswomen of this country who continue to display the values and attributes of resilience, dedication, commitment, and rising to the challenges. And you have to be incredibly proud of the efforts being made, especially in the context of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee, the efforts being made by our athletes, those who have already qualified for Tokyo 2020, whenever it is held, those who are still in the process. And at the end of the day, notwithstanding the economic, social and public health and financial challenges that they are facing, they continue to hold on to their dream. And that's an important lesson. But it also speaks to the values which you also know, and anyone who have been involved in sport, that beneath all the bacchanal and all the ego and grandstanding and posturing that takes place, that sports can be a positive difference in the lives of all of everyone, including youth and young people. I think that for me, is the biggest takeaway for this year, and that's the lesson I continue to drive home, you know.
And before we conclude, Brian, and it's good to know that you still retain that positive outlook with our young people, and let's hope our administrators eventually come on board. Just getting back to the Tokyo 2021 situation, and with this new variant, and with this vaccine, where we see different attitudes, because even in France, from what I understand, the latest survey shows that 50% of the population doesn't want to take the vaccine because they feel it's too soon. Could we face a situation where some of our athletes may not want to take the vaccine and therefore may be excluded from the Olympic Games? Is it too early to have that discussion?
At the end of the day, I've already said that I respect the rights, the human rights, the constitutional rights, and the rights to choose of our athletes, whether it be to have a protest, a dignified protest against social injustices such as racism and sexism. We will not punish them, which goes counter, of course, to what the IOC would like to see. In terms of the vaccine, even though our athletes have qualified for the games and would love to go, they have certain rights, and we will have ongoing conversations with the Ministry of Health, the public health authorities here, CARPHA, and the World Health Organization in terms of determining certain parameters. But at this particular point, it's the right of an athlete to choose, and we will respect and support that right. I'm sure that at the appointed time, there may be people, whether they be athletes, coaches, and administrators, who may exercise the right not to go to Tokyo 2020, and I'm not afraid to embrace that reality. At the end of the day, this is a public health issue that is unprecedented, and as much as we are patriotic and want to represent Trinidad and Tobago, we have to return from Tokyo to our families and home and communities, so that there's a huge responsibility. But as I said, we'll be guided by the TTOC medical team, which includes Dr. Terry Ali, Dr. Rudy Ramsawak, and Dr. Nyla Adams, the Ministry of Health, the World Health Organization, CARPHA, and the other health experts.
Brian, we have to continue that discussion about the right of protest, because I know you're very strong on that. We just don't have the time this morning to develop it further, whether you should be standing up and making more noise with like-minded colleagues at IOC, congresses and so on. But time doesn't allow us. Let's hope all goes well with the event tomorrow evening from 6 p.m. and that indeed there's still a lot to celebrate in sport in Trinidad and Tobago. Thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. Brian Lewis there with us, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee. As we go to the break, our viewer Robert Ramsing says he has lots of time. Nice play on words, Robert, with this submission. And now we have for you as well a sunrise from Andel Sheldon Leben of Princestown. As we see the beautiful image there. We have just a few minutes to go for your votes on Facebook to determine our winner. We'll be back in a while.